take the clay off the wire so it doesn't make little bits. Oh, that's probably not enough. A bigger chunk. There we go. All right, then when I'm done with my clay, I'm going to push all the air out. Give it a twist, chip clip. Okay, so we're going to start with a lump of clay. Okay, this is going to make something at least that big. So if you want to make something smaller than that, you'll take less clay. These are the thing about the pinch pots. We're going to make two little bowls. We're going to make a ball, cut it in half, make two little bowls, and then put the bowls back together so that we make basically a clay bomb. Then you can cut the lid off once you shape it, and it's hollow. But you can see the thickness of the walls of this pot are pinky finger thickness. So in order for things to dry without cracking, these are sort of spots where things tend to crack, where we put indentations. In order to avoid cracking, we need to make sure that everything is the same thickness. This is one that a student made last semester. That's pretty good, but we do have some areas that are a little thicker and some that are a little thinner. So that between those two areas is a potential for cracking. Okay, sometimes they'll crack on the inside. So we make those two little pinch pots, and then you can add details to them to make them what you want. So this, because it doesn't have a lid that comes off, has a good sized hole in the bottom to let that cavity of air out while it's shrinking and while it's drying. Make sense? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take some clay off, and we're going to lump it down on the table to make more or less a cube. Feels like you're not doing anything, but by cubing the clay like this, you're realigning the particles and making them kind of stack up again. Okay, so once you have that, then you're going to use your palm to push down any corners and make it into a ball. Now the more you play with this clay, what happens to the outside edge of this clay from your hands? What's that? Dries out and it starts to crack. Okay, so if I do this for half an hour, that outside core is going to start to crack, and the inside is going to be still soft, and so that's why the outside cracks and breaks. So I'm not worried too much about, there's my rings, I'm not too worried about anything just yet. I just want it to be more or less round. Okay, then I'm going to cut it in half. Super satisfying. And then with these two halves, we're going to make a pinch pot. So I'm not going to work on this one, so I'm going to put it under my wet microfiber cloth so it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to make this into a pinch pot. Ready? It's very scientific. So we want to keep the outside edge of this piece round. Want to keep that round. So I'm going to use my hand rounded. Put that in the round palm of my hand, and then I'm going to push in the middle. Okay, about halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway through. You with me? Then keeping my hand round on the outside so it doesn't get flat anywhere, and keeping this hand round on the side like this, I'm going to pinch towards my round fingers. Because if I go like this, I could end up with the flat spot, and we want the outside to be round. Okay, so got something in my eyeball. So now I have a little bit of a bowl, but it's more thumb thickness. I want it to be pinky finger thickness. So I'm going to keep pinching that around until I get it thinner and thinner. This edge right here has to stay flat. So if it starts to curl up like this, tap it on the table, keep that flat, right? Because once this pinch pot is done, we're going to join them together, and we want flat surface to flat surface. Okay? All right, so I'm going to pinch around till I get pinky finger thickness, more or less. Okay, so now I have nice thin walls, but right here from the bottom to my finger there is about that thick, and I need that to get thinner as well. So I'm going to hold this in the palm of my hand, and I'm going to push Now because my palm is round, that's going to stay nice and round. If you don't have a round hand holding it on this side, sometimes you end up with a plate instead of a bowl, right? So I'm pushing it against the palm of my hand, and I'm feeling for any spots that are thicker. And I'm pinching any spots that are too thick. So I get even thickness all the way from here, all the way down there. So now this bowl is the same thickness, pinky finger thickness, all the way down here and all the way up there. So even around here, it's all pinky finger thickness. So now I'm gonna set that aside under my cloth and make a second one. Did anybody go to West Park Middle School? Because I taught Miss Toth how to make, I taught Miss Toth how to make those clay whistles. Did you guys make clay whistles?
Yeah.
You did? No?
I did.
You did? You didn't like it?
No.
Oh. It did. Well, they are a little finicky. I used to teach my grade 6s when I taught there how to make those. It's the same exact thing. So if you made a whistle, you made just a smaller version of this. This would actually make a whistle that would sound like a train, because the bigger ones make a louder sound. I have a little whistle somewhere. Here's my whistle. Very cool, hey, that you can actually make a musical instrument. They're called ocarinas. Anyway, so if you've done this, you are an expert already at making hollow pinch pot forms. So you can make, this is the first, like when people in Africa first dug clay out of the earth, there were no potter's wheels. They would sit on the ground and they would make pinch pots with their hands. This is the very first way that clay was made into bowls and usable utensils. Okay, so there's my second pinch pot. It's a little bit big, so I'm just going to push the edges in so that they more or less fit. Make this one a bit bigger. Okay, now can I just join them like that? What do I have to do? Score. All right, this is important. On that flat surface, make your X's, and it should go in 2 different directions. Make X's, and then with your paintbrush, paint some Darvon water. And you can actually watch the Darvon water work, because it's going to start to dissolve the clay a little bit. Yeah.
One of the wheels is broken.
Broken?
The plugs is snapped.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so now I've scored both. I can join them right now if I want, but if I want this to be a joint that's going to last forever, and for sure going to survive any pressures of the kiln, I'm going to score and Darvon water a second time. Okay, second time doesn't have to be as neat, but basically I'm creating some slip. I'm creating some watery clay on that surface that's going to fill in those cracks and make that Velcro closure permanent. So then you will put those two together, and I'm going to press them together to start with. Make sure they all meet, and then I'm going to jiggle. And then usually at this point, I just let it sit. Because right now the joint in that clay is really soupy, and the clay itself is quite hard because I've been sucking the water out of it with my hands. So now I have the 2 parts joined together. I'm going to let it sit like out in the air for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And then once it gels a little bit, then what you're going to do is you're going to work that joint to make it disappear. And while it's still nice and wet, this is really easy. So you just pinch them together and you smooth your thumb over top. It's easier if you let this sit because you can see the water sort of squeeching up between them. It makes it a little bit gooey. So if we let it sit for a minute, that water will absorb into the clay. Okay, so eventually you get a seam that completely disappears. If you have a seam that does not want to disappear, it just won't go away, you can add a coil. So add a little bit of clay, take a little clay and you make a little wormy. And you can set that little wormy, you guys listening, into that joint. And because there's already Darvon water there, we really don't need to score that. And you can press that into the joint. And that will make a permanent closure that will be invisible. That waiting about 10 minutes after joining is really helpful because then it doesn't get so wet. Okay? And then once you have this, now you have created a bomb that will explode in the kiln. It will. This will blow up. And as it starts to shrink, which it will do very quickly, within a couple of hours it'll start to shrink, it'll start to compress the air that's inside here. Because of that, we need to let the air out a little bit, so you're going to do this. You're going to lend your teacher your pin tool. Okay? On the bottom, poke a hole. Okay? That relieves the pressure even if it's sitting on top of that hole. We can heal that hole later once we turn this into a pumpkin, or we turn it into a bird, or we turn it into a pear, or we turn it into an apple, whatever you want to turn it into. That will at least let it shrink on its own, without you having to worry about it cracking as it shrinks, even in your humidor. Sound good? So today, all I want you to do is to make your pinch pots, make yourself your sphere, and then let it sit in your humidor till tomorrow. Tomorrow, I will show you how to make the grooves in the pumpkin and the stem if you want. And I'll show you, if you want to make a bird, how to add the head and the tail of the bird if you'd rather make one of those. If you want to make something that's not a pumpkin or a bird, then it's up to you to figure it out. Okay? You can ask me, of course, I'll tell you. But those are the two things I'm going to teach to everyone. Sound good? Okay, so finish your stamps and get yourself a little clay bomb created and put in your humidor for tomorrow. All right?
Are we making
Let's get to work. Well, that looks like a bomb. Technically, it is a bomb.